All righty, let's go on. So that's where we are right now. What can we label that where we are right now for the bees? That's the sweet spot. What's that sweet spot? What am I talking about? What I'm supposed to be talking about tonight.
Swarming?
Swarming. Swarming. So as colonies get up big and strong, they know they're big and strong. Swarming is a behavior where they stop doing ordinary behaviors up to 3 weeks before they actually come out as a swarm, very intently the week before. So they stop doing normal things like collecting nectar and collecting pollen and raising babies. The other factor in terms of what's going on here is, of course, then the colony divides. Okay, so you got a colony of bees in your backyard. You are the beekeeper inside your house, or you're all done up in your garb to go look at the bees, all right? Who's in charge?
The bees.
The bees? The beekeeper.
The bees.
When a bee swarm, they're showing you they're in charge, all right? We can stop it, not in all colonies. The reason we can't is because when a queen lays eggs in her colony, she's adding more members to her family. And each colony can be a different family, can kind of have different characteristics. Some store a lot more, some swarm a lot more, some sting a lot more. You know that, different colonies, all right? But basic to all living organisms is reproduction. So the reproduction of the colony unit is swarming. So swarming is basic reproduction, like all living organisms. And so as beekeepers, we should not ever hope for 100% success, but if we want to take the challenge with our bees and try to manage them, this is a good place to start with swarming, okay? So let me talk a couple things about swarming, okay? It's April, almost May. Will your bees swarm this month or into May? So swarming remains, with mites and winter losses, among our biggest challenges in keeping bees healthy and for having fun in beekeeping. So I'm going to ask 3 questions of you tonight. Why do we see bees swarming in spring? What can we do about the challenge that swarming presents, presuming that we want to do anything, we have the time and effort? Are your bees preparing to swarm right now, today, this week, okay? What are 3 things we might do for swarm management with our bees? And you're right, I cannot count, so there are 4 things there, not 3, all right? So let's get to the first one, spring. Is it really, a provocative question, is it really possible to manage swarming? The short answer is no, it's basic reproduction. The second answer is yes, we are beekeepers, we are strong, we can control those bees rather than having them control us. And boy, that's easy to say. It's hard to accomplish, okay? So maybe we can't. For the group at Oakland, they record swarm calls and look when it occurs. This is weeks of the week, so this is week 12, that's the end of March. They get a few swarms down in Oakland and in the Oakland Hills around Berkeley. But look at when they get their swarms. April, week 14, week 16, May, week 18, week 20. But by the time June comes along, their colonies have really stopped swarming. There are still some, as there are some in March. And when we do the same, I have a record for a pub up in Portland. I thought this might be more appropriate for you here. And if you did the same thing and you got records, this is 5 years record, okay? So it varies. You see some years are real swarmy years. Look at this year. Early peak at the end of April, and look at this, a peak in the middle of May. Boy, that was a swarmy year. That was, the red is 2020, okay? They couldn't keep the bees in boxes. So there are some years where your challenge is much more of a challenge trying to stop them, all right? So this illustrates that it occurs in spring. The challenge is it is normal biology. So why spring? Because it optimizes their chance to be successful. Okay, reproduction, all other ordinary things stop for a while. So if you're going to go into an extraordinary behavior of reproduction, you better make sure it works. And that's what the organism does, the bee colony. So spring. Second question I asked is swarming. Swarming. Do you want to stop them? And of course, The question to that is how. Curse them. That works. Capture them. Split them before they do. Capture them. Okay. Hope for the best. Or simply give up hope. And that's going to vary. Person sitting next to you might have a completely different answer. So this goes back to, why are you keeping bees? What's your objective? What do you hope to get out of beekeeping? Okay? And that's going to vary again for all of us. So how you may answer this is going to be dependent upon how much effort you want to make and what you might want as an objective. Intriguing question, can we control swarming and reduce mites at the same time? Now, I talked about early spring with drone brood, and the short answer to this is yes, because we're going to be talking about splitting colonies, and when you split colonies, you're affecting a brood break. That's another method of controlling mite growth, all right, without using any chemicals. Did you start bees to use all these chemicals 3-4 times? Commercial beekeepers 5-6 times? Many of us did not. So here are two non-chemical methods, drone brood and splitting. So one of our problems with swarming is it's such a basic behavior, we don't know why. We do know they raise drones. We know they build these cups. So the workers and drones develop on a horizontal, but queens are going to develop vertically. So that every bee in a hive knows they're now rearing queens because it's hanging down. And to do that, they have to make special cells, and we call those cells cups. It's very much a genetic factor. It has to do with the age of the queen. Queens that have been through spring, that are now your 2-year-old queens, much greater probability that that colony is going to swarm versus a brand new queen you put in last fall. Distribution of the substance, not only its distribution, but how the bees are congested in the colony, because a brand new queen can produce a lot of herself chemically, but if it doesn't get around to every bee and every bee knows they've got a good young queen in there, that colony can swarm on you, okay? So it's all about these chemical pheromones, but not only the age of the queen and her ability to produce it, but also the ability of the colony to distribute it to all the workers. So as your colony grows from 20,000 to 30,000, that's 10,000 more bees that have to get the same message from the same queen. Well, older queens just don't have enough to get there. Congested colonies in the area of brood, where all the congestion is occurring, they don't have the ability to get that chemical around to everyone. Some bees don't get the message, they start changing these behaviors, okay? Space available, particularly, right now bees want pollen, that's about all they want. But quickly they're going to find some sources of nectar. If they don't have a place to put that nectar, then they're going to clog up the area where the queen should be laying eggs, all right? Same thing. That's clogging things up, you don't get distribution of the chemical, and you get swarming. There are swarmy years, so environmental conditions, and again, I've said it's spring. So there's no one factor we're trying to attack. Look at all the factors we're trying to get at here in terms of working with this behavior. And we know they're here. We've had a couple early records of swarms. Usually we have, April is a fairly decent swarm year. May is always the better year, but April and May will compete, at least in the Portland area groups that keep track of these things. They'll get about equal numbers of swarms in April and May. We've had exactly one. Now, we might likely have had some today, and as warm as it's getting this weekend, we might have some here in the 29th and 30th, okay? I know you're not going to be able to read this, but all I'm trying to illustrate is that there are a whole number of factors that are going on. The blue things are changes in colony condition, and picking on the next to last one, decreased feeding of the queen. That starts 2 weeks before the colony swarms. So 2 weeks, they're preparing to do this. These things are changing in a colony. They have more food in their stomachs. They carry more food in their stomachs, up to 2 weeks ahead of all this happening, okay? These are signals that are non-chemical. Bees have many ways of communicating, and the yellow are signals that are chemical. So I'll use your search engine. This is an article, just use this, From Molecules to Societies, and you'll find this article. It's from 2014, in a journal called Apidology. It explains that the take-home message is here is that it just doesn't happen. It's been happening in your colony even though you didn't know it. And it's happening a long time before you actually then see that the swarm comes out. Okay? So the second question I asked is, do you want to do something about it? Do you want to curse them? You want to capture them? Can I put that question slightly different way? Do you want to do something? Okay. So here I'm asking again, what's your objective? Why are you keeping bees? Are you intent to keep healthy bees, or do you want sick bees? Are you trying to do this for fun? Are you trying to do it for product, honey, for example, pollination? Are you on the road to riches and fame with your beekeeping? Okay. It's a mighty, mighty thin road, okay? So we can pose this slightly a different way and ask you, how much do you want to do? It's a challenge. It's a major challenge. It's biology. It's what bees do to reproduce, a colony. Okay? If we're going to try to do something about it, it's going to be a major challenge. And I split that challenge into two things. One, keep the colony from ever starting swarming. Okay? Keep the colony from ever starting swarming. And so I'd say arbitrarily that's swarm prevention. So you have young queens. You requeen all of your colonies this fall, no matter how good they are, no matter how much you paid for the mite biter queen, whatever. You requeen them this fall. So next spring they have a young queen, okay? You make sure there's lots of ventilation in the colony, things don't get congested. You open up the brood area. You might reverse the boxes. You might put frames in that's called checkerboarding. So you might do a bunch of things so that those conditions that I was trying to get to don't occur in your colony. But once the bees start the process, you've got to up your game. And so arbitrarily we can call that swarm control. And what you're going to up your game is you're going to find queen cells, developing queen cells. The earlier you find them, the better the chance of you being successful in the challenge, okay? And then you're going to halt it, all right? So what are we looking for? How do we know if your colony right now is preparing to swarm? How do you know? You look, okay? This is what you're looking for. This is a bottom board. These are developing queen cells. There's one here, there's one here, there's one here, there's one here. Here's a couple of drone cells. You can see they're popped up. Here's some worker cells, horizontal, vertically hanging queen cells. These happen to be capped queen cells because they have completed their larval development and are capped, all right? They're really recently capped because you see a lot of extra wax on the tip. As it gets close to the queen coming out, the bees actually thin this wax down. So you can kind of get a bit of an idea how old they might be. So how do you find them? You clamshell, okay? You take your two boxes, you pull the top box back, you bend down, and you look on the bottom bars for the cells. That's all you got to do. If you don't see any, you're finished your inspection for whether that colony is preparing to swarm. If you see some, then do you have enough time? Are you going to take the challenge? Are you going to try to do something? Okay. So as you look, you may see it more like this. So here's the bottom bar itself. Here's a capped queen cell. We're looking at it from right straight onto it. Here's a queen cell that has a larva in it. It's not a capped one yet. And this one was tied with some wax to the box below. And so when we clamshelled, it broke open. Okay, so we did that artificially. All right, so that's the easy part. Okay. Right now, every colony you have, by doing this clamshelling, you're going to be able to tell which colonies right now are preparing to swarm. No queen cells, close them back up, come back in a week. With much of beekeeping, it's not one and done. With the drone comb, 3 times in the spring, okay? Clamshelling, looking for queen cells every week now for the next couple of months, okay? This view, if you actually pull frames out, you can pull frames out if you want. So you can see queen cells. Here's a cell that is just in the process of being capped. Here is one that's got a larva in it, another with a larva in it. This one was kind of damaged a little bit when we lifted the thing up. But notice that if you look here at the bottom bar, just the clamshelling, you might not see these, okay? Because you're going to be looking at the base of that bottom bar. These are tucked up in on the cell. And then very diabolically, what's going to happen with the colonies is they know you're after them to try to stop that. So they're going to put queen cells up alongside of the sidebar as well. And bees don't put all their eggs in one basket. Look how many queen cells this colony is rearing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 21 queen cells. And they're about 5 days difference in age from the oldest to the youngest. Okay. Here they're all young, just barely past the egg stage. Okay. Here they're starting to elongate it, so this might be like a 2-day-old larva, maybe a 3-day-old larva. How many cells here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They don't put all their eggs in one basket. So that's one of the ways you're going to know it's that. Versus if the last time you were in, you accidentally killed your brand new queen, they're not going to put the cells there because these cells were started by the queen herself in a cup. If you killed the queen the last time you were in, they're going to elaborate a new queen, build a new queen cell from the side of the comb by modifying where a worker is. Okay, so number and placement, spring, you add all those three things up, and you can guess swarming is going to occur. So that's a game changer. So what do you do on the fourth question? All right, ignore them and they'll go away. They'll come out and they'll swarm and they'll go off to a brand new home. Bye, girls. And your colony will then replace its queen and you'll have a colony. Okay, so ignore them. Or try to, don't give up hope, but put up more bait boxes. All right, here we've got a nuke box on a telephone pole. We've got a flower container on the side of a tree. This fellow has flying langs. So this is a Langstroth hive on a nice pulley system. He sits here in the morning and has his coffee, in the afternoon and has his cocktails, and he can see the scouts coming and going, and he'll quickly be able to tell when a new colony has moved in. Bait hives, old comb and swarm commander, or lemongrass oil. 1 drop, not 25 drops, 1 drop. Okay. Here at the entrance, old comb inside. That's all that you need. You put out 10, you may get five new colonies. You put out 1, you may or may not get any. Okay. Best place to put them out, 5 to 10 to 15 feet high. That's why it's on a pulley system, and on your neighbor's property. But I'd suggest you get permission first. Okay. So what else can we do? Ignoring them, putting up more bait boxes. Well, we can wait for the swarms to emerge. So for the next 2 months, go in tomorrow and tell the boss, I've got to wait for the swarm to come out of my colony. I'm going to take the next 2 months off and sit in my apron. That might work, okay? Hope you got a boss that'll understand all about bees, okay? Make sure you provide more space and ventilation, all right? As soon as they start getting some of that nectar, they can get things really tied up in their area for brood. And then the queen doesn't have enough area to lay eggs. Make sure you got a super on. Make sure you put a super on earlier. Requeen with a young queen, all right? That should have been done last fall, but you can still replace older queens this spring if you can get queens. The 2 best bets right now, of course, if you see the cells, remove all cells. And then a better bet, a better management, remove all cells and split, okay? So let me, here we're waiting for them to come out. Yes, question?
When you say requeening, are you requeening in the fall?
I'm requeening in the fall every colony.
Okay, I've done it in the spring.
And again, spring requeening is okay. It's going to affect the size of your colony, how long the nectar flow lasts. So it's a little bit riskier, not much, a little bit riskier that everything's going to go well for that colony.
Okay.
And of course, in the fall, you can buy a brand new queen, a perfectly good queen, and murder her by putting her in a colony.
When you say, what month are you talking about?
August, after you've taken any honey off. Yep. So give up that vacation in Italy and northern Spain that you plan. Okay, requeen. So what about this remove? How do you find remove? I'm refining it by you cut them, you smash them, you pinch them, or you just take them away. Put them in your pocket. Put them in your bee suit. Forget about them. Put it through the wash cycle. You'll have a holy mess in your pocket. But that's probably never happened to anyone here at all. Okay? Get rid of them from the colony where they're rearing them. Now, what most of us are going to be thinking of is splitting the colony, so we're going to try this type of thing. So every cell that you see, you get out of there, you transfer it, and every one that you can't transfer, you just simply smash it or pinch it with your gloved hand or whatever you do. You've got to get rid of them. You can't miss any, okay? If you miss even one, the bees know what they're doing. They're going to laugh at you when they come out swarming, and you can actually hear them laughing as they fly away. Seriously. Listen closely. You can actually hear them, okay? So this brings up splits or nukes. Nukes are a nucleus colony or a split or a divide. All those words have slightly different meanings, but they're basically the same thing. You take out the queen cells from that colony that was raising the queens, and you put them in a different box. In a nuke box, you take a regular hive body and put a divider in it. You can put two of them in there. You get them out, okay? And then it's good to feed them because it's a new colony. And like many things, it's not one and done, okay? What you are after is you are managing your bees, because if you don't, the bees are going to manage you. It's a challenge. Don't take it lightly. It's tough. It really is tough, okay? Here's a thought in terms of making a nuke. So the red frames represent where the brood area is. This is a great colony, okay? It expanded through 2 full-size boxes. It's got brood in 16 of 20 frames. It's spherical. So your colony that was only the size of a softball grew to a soccer ball, grew to a basketball, grew to a beach ball. You want the exercise ball size. That's what we have here, 16 of the 20 frames. Good, strong colony, lots of bees. But we clamshelled, looked on the bottom, we saw queen cells. So what can we do? Well, we can take out 3 frames. The 3 frames here are each of them which had queen cells, and put them in another box, in a nuke box, or another standard box. In other words, we split this colony. We kill any more queen cells that are over here. Get rid of them over here, all right? Now you have a queen right unit, all right? And this is where your queen is, over here. And you have a queenless unit. So if you transfer the queen cells, a queen will come out in a day, perhaps, a few days, perhaps, and then she'll be a virgin queen, she'll mate. So in about 2 weeks, if you transfer the capped queen cells, 2 weeks, you'll have a queen right colony. In other words, 1 queen in this new colony laying eggs. All right, she's already mated. If you happen to have one of the mite biter queens in your pocket in the JZBZ cage, you can go ahead and put that cage queen right away in your split. She'll come out and be released from this cage within a week and start laying eggs. So 1 week if you've got the queen, 2 weeks if you transfer some of the cells. If you manage to kill all of the cells, or the bees do, then it's going to be about a month before you have a queen right colony. So how soon do you need that colony, basically? Are you going to build a colony for next year, or do you want to try to have it produce something this year? Okay? So nukes of opportunity. What we're trying to get after here then is in this case, this is 2 8-frame standard boxes. So this is 8-frame equipment. Queen cells, when we clamshelled, we didn't have room in the apiary, so we actually put the nuke on top. Right? In this case, we don't want them to interchange, so that's not a queen extruder between colony 1 here, the original, and the split on top. It's a screen between there, so the bees can't go back and forth. What we're doing is we're taking advantage of the heat of this colony below going to the colony above. Like a lot of things, okay, like with drone brood, with bees, it's not one and done. So the big thing that we make a mistake with when we make up a nuke is we make up the nuke, we transfer those 3 frames, we transfer the outer frames, these are feed frames, so this is honey and pollen in it. But then we've got to come back and put some more young bees in it. Because when we take this, so here's our entrance, the entrance is this way on our new nuke up here. Older worker bees that have been foraging go out, but they know where their home is, so they come back here. So we're losing population from our splits. So after 3 days, a week, next weekend, come back and shake some more bees into the nuke, okay? Young bees. Find the frames that have brood on it. Make sure the queen's not on there. Just literally shake more bees into the nuke, wherever you put the nuke. Whether you put it in your buddy's yard, your own yard, you put it on top of one of your colonies. Okay? Not one and done. All right? So this is basics of any nuke. You can make a nuke of 1 brood frame, 2 brood frames, or 3 brood frames. Okay? In this illustration, I'm showing you that there are 2. Here are the 2 brood frames. And again, a mixture, open and sealed brood. 2 feed frames. Usually we put them on the outside. So these are frames that have honey, frames, bee bread if there's some that they have. And this is a 5-frame box, so then we just put in something else. If we've got a drawn comb, we put it in. If we've got a foundation, we put it in. Okay? This is probably, as you make this split up, a little too early to put your drone comb in there. You want them to build up, make sure they get going initially. I'd used a drone comb back in the original colony. All right? Either way. But you can, either way. So part of the question is when you want to do that and make up your colony. Remember, in spring, things get happen awful quickly. So here's a look at a frame from a spring colony. What are you seeing? Okay, what are we looking at?
A lot of capped brood.
A lot of capped brood. Look at all the capped brood here. Good pattern, good solid brood pattern. Nice queen, yep. Then some empty cells, and then some younger capped brood. You know, they haven't walked on them as yet with their dirty feet, so they're lighter color. So what happened here? How are they going to expand? The center of that's all taken up with brood, so where's the new brood going to go? Out beyond. So they've gone from soccer ball to basketball size, all right? And this is empty because this is where they had the bee bread. They used all the bee bread up to feed their larvae when they were feeding larvae. So here's the oldest of the cap brood, and you can take some cappings off to confirm this. These are bees about ready to emerge. Why it's darker is they've walked over it a lot more, all their dirty feet, okay? This is younger. She came back. So look how much. Look, from that size to that size in less than, okay, the cap brood hasn't hatched, so less than 2 weeks. Look how fast these colonies expand. It's just incredible. Okay? And with that, then, this tendency that they want to split. All right, so I promised 3 ways. So one way is smash, cut, pinch, remove, and split. What might be another way that you can deal with swarming? I actually, I'll give you 4 ways because I told you to put more bait boxes up, okay? Sure, wait for the swarms to come out, okay? It's going to be a tough swarm in that holly, all right? Isn't that a beautiful swarm?
It is.
But this is your swarm. Please don't ever do this. Top rung of a ladder. We're beekeepers. We got to try it, but don't impale life and limb or chance of it. Okay. So 2, wait for them to swarm and capture the swarms. And 3, fool the bees. Okay. Shook swarming. You can use your search engine. Look this up. Basically, you go into the colony that's rearing queen cells and you shake out all the bees. You shake it out into a box that is nothing but foundation. So we're pulling frames out and we're shaking them into this box, all right? And then we take all this brood and give it to our weakest colonies. We don't want to put any brood in here at all right? When we shake out, we're going to shake the queen out. What we have done, hopefully, is fool the bees into thinking they've already swarmed. They're in a brand new home. You know, there's no brood. They can't take brood with them. There's no honey. They only can take what's in their stomachs. So you have shook them out of their hive and put them in a brand new home. Same thing that's going to happen when they leave your home, form that bivouac, and then go into the tree. All right? It works for some people. Others don't have a lot of luck with this. Shook swarming, see if it's something that, it's a lot of work. You get a lot of bees in the air. And results are going to be very variable. All right? Now, one other thing that we then have is, so if you are a 3-colony backyard beekeeper and all 3 of your colonies start to rear queen cells and you make splits, How many colonies do you now have in your backyard? You started with 3. If you split them just once, there would be 6. If you made 2 splits out of every one of them, there would be 9. 9. We could easily get to a dozen because we're going to split again, easily, right? Is the family going to be are you going to be able to live with your family?
No.
No, probably not. Probably not. So colony creep or increasing numbers of colony can be an issue with the splitting. So I showed you splitting and you keep the same number of colonies. The rest of the family isn't going to know you got 2 families in that condo unit. They're still thinking it's just 1 colony, all right? The one where I showed the nuke on top, they're still going to think that's 1. They're going to count it as 1. You're counting it as 2 already, all right? Here's another thought. So we've made all these splits, but now we get to the point where there's a lot of nectar coming in from blackberry, I presume. Most of us are after the Himalayan blackberry. Put the splits together. Put them back together. Because once we get to that nectar flow, the bees stop all of this about swarming. Why? They got another job to do. Collect as much of that blackberry nectar as they can to get in their colony. So we just put them back together. So here, the dark blue box, it was the colony we originally split. We made some splits. Here's maybe one of those splits, or a split. We put a sheet of newspaper on, and we're putting them back together. Yes, there's a queen here, there's a queen here. We put a super on it because we're right at the blackberry
So
time.
do you put a queen excluder between them so you don't?
I let them duke it out. You can put a queen excluder in and then take it out later on, and you may need more than 1 super, okay? In this case, we did the same. Here's a standard box. We took the split in the medium box that was on top, so we took the whole split away, the whole box away, and so we're now adding them back together. We got our super on it. Or here's another thought of tower supering. Here's a split, not a real strong colony. Here's a second split, not a real strong colony. Push the 2 together, put queen excluder halfway in this one, halfway in that one, and then tower super the 2 boxes together. So all the bees here are working for that tower. All the bees here are working for that tower. As long as the queen can't get from here to here or vice versa, you've got 2 colonies working for filling those supers. And challenge.
And the bees won't fight?
The bees won't fight. There's so much blackberry nectar coming in, it's all gravy. They're just piling it as fast as they can do it. Okay, so tower supering, another of the concepts. So that's what's next. We've barely gotten through the dead out season. Some of our colonies are pretty weak, but we have some strong colonies that may already be certainly starting cups and are raising drones. And maybe just maybe you've got a colony or 2 that are already starting queen cells.
A couple of weeks ago, I had queen cells in one.
You had queen cells a couple of weeks ago. So they are. They're rearing it. Yep. So swarming is a big challenge. Again, don't set yourself up that I'm going to stop it completely. It's a learning experience. Beekeeping is a journey. So as part of your journey this year, you're really just jumping on the learning wagon. Try it, see what happens, see what works best. And in 2 or 3 years, you'll be able to come in a class here and teach everyone else how you've never had a swarm in the last 2 years.